Old Mose Abrams was out hunting cows when he found the alien. He didn't know it was an alien, but it was alive and in a lot of trouble. And old Mose, despite everything the neighbors said about him, was not the kind of man who could bear to leave a sick thing out there in the woods. It was a horrid-looking thing, green and shiny with some purple spots, and it was repulsive even 20 feet away. And it stank. It had crawled into a clump of hazel brush, but hadn't made it. Every now and then, its arms clawed feebly at the ground, trying to force itself deeper in, but it was too weak. It never moved an inch. It was groaning, just the kind of keening sound a lonesome wind might make around a wide, deep eave. But there was more in it than just wind. There was a frightened, desperate note that made the hair stand up on old Mose's nape. He stood there for quite a spell making up his mind, and a while longer after that, working up his courage. He turned it over to look at its face. It hadn't any face. It had an enlargement at the top, like a flower on a stalk, and there was a fringe around it that wiggled like a can of worms. And it was then that Mose almost turned around and ran, but he stuck it out. He was prepared for it to be cold or slimy, but it was neither. It was warm and hard, and it had a clean feel to it, like the way a green cornstalk would feel. He picked it up. It weighed less than a half-grown shote. As he went up the woods path, the thing was quieter now, and there were times when it seemed as if the thing were snuggling up to him, the way a scared and hungry baby will snuggle to any grown person that comes and picks it up. Old Mose reached the buildings and stood in the yard a minute, wondering whether to take it to the barn or the house. The barn was the natural place. It wasn't human, but he didn't hesitate too long. He took it into the house. He took it into the house and laid it on the bed next to the kitchen stove. He got it straightened out and pulled a blanket over it, then stirred up the fire.
You don't need to worry. Now that I got you under a roof, you'll be all right. I don't know too much about it, but I'll take care of you the best I can. I got to go get the milking done and the other chores, but it won't take me long. I'll be right back.
He loaded up the stove so the kitchen would stay warm, tucked the thing in once again, then got his milk pails and went down to the barn. He fed the sheep and pigs and horses and milked the cows. He hunted eggs and shut the chicken house. He pumped a tank of water. Then he went back to the house. It was dark now, and he lit the oil lamp on the table, for he was against electricity. He'd refused to sign up when REA had run out the line and the neighbors had gotten sore at him. Not that he cared. He thought, how would I feel if I were in a far, strange country, all played out and sick, and no one got me any help because they didn't know what I was? That made up his mind.
I got someone who is sick. I hope you can help him.
He went down the path into the woods. He didn't find another one of them, but he did find something else, a sort of outsized birdcage made of metal latticework wrapped around an 8-inch hickory tree. He sighted back the way it must have come, and out beyond the broken branches were stars, shining bleakly with the look of far away.
You don't look sick to me. Not sick enough to drag me clear out here at night.
I ain't sick. I got someone who is sick. I hope you can help him.
When the doctor straightened up, the only thing keeping him from being angry was that he was so flabbergasted.
Mose, I can't do a thing for it. I'm a human doctor. I don't know what this thing is, but it isn't human. I cannot be certain it is even an animal. It may very well be a plant.
Mose got the cigar box almost full of silver dollars and paid the doctor. The doctor joshed him about his eccentricity.
Paper money don't seem legal, somehow. I like the feel of silver and the way it clinks. It's got authority.
Looking at the thing on the bed, Mose had an almost fierce hope that it could get well and stay, for already the house felt less lonely. He realized how lonely it had been. It had not been quite so bad until Towser died. He had tried to bring himself to get another dog, but never been able to. And there was no cat either, for cats reminded him too much of Molly. When he woke in the dark before dawn, with the lamp flickering and the fire burned low, the alien had died. The thing was cold and rigid, drying out, as a corn stalk in the field dries out, whipping in the wind once the growing has been ended. After breakfast, he heated water and washed his face and shaved. The first time in years he'd shaved any day but Sunday. He put on his one good suit, slicked down his hair, and drove into town.
EBE, I want to buy a lot.
Eb protested. Mose already had a family plot, just room for him and Molly. But Mose told him he'd found someone in the woods who died, and he planned to bury him. Eb washed his hands of the affair and sold him the plot.
Doc tells me this thing of yours isn't even human. It's got to be human for me to handle it. And don't go trying to bury it in the cemetery. It's against the law.
This thing may not be human, but it is one of God's critters.
The minister thought some more, but shook his head. Mose drove home thinking about what heels some humans are. Back at the farm, he got a pick and shovel and dug a grave in the garden. He found an old white linen tablecloth in a chest in one of the back rooms. As he laid the body in the tablecloth, he saw the pocket in it, a slitted flap in its chest. There was a lump inside. He reached his fingers in and took out a ball, a little bigger than a tennis ball, made of cloudy glass. It had a rough, dead feel about it. He shook his head, put it back, and wrapped the body in the cloth. He carried it to the garden and laid it in the grave. Standing at the head of it, he said a few short words, then shoveled in the dirt. He gave the garden an extra plowing after, so the ground would be fresh all over. No mound, no cross. There would be snoopers.
I'd like to see it, Mose.
Can't. I buried it, and I ain't telling where. It was alive, and it had its dignity, and in death, it commanded some respect. When the rest of you refused a decent burial, I did the best I could. And that is all there is to it.
The sheriff drove away fast, as if he might be angry. A reporter came and walked up the row with him. Mose didn't like him much. He was too flip and asked some funny questions, so Mose clammed up and didn't tell him much. The story the man wrote made fun of old Mose.
It's at peace. I aim to leave it that way.
The man went away disgusted, but still quite dignified. The queerest visitor was the president of a flying saucer club, a dark, intense man. When he got to lecturing Mose about withholding vital information, Mose stepped inside and picked up the shotgun from behind the door. The man said goodbye, rather hastily. In a little while, they left him alone and he went on with his farming and the house stayed lonely. He thought again that maybe he should get a dog, but he thought of Towser and he couldn't do it. One day, working in the garden, he found the plant that had grown out of the grave. It was a funny-looking plant, bulky and fleshy, with heavy dark green curling leaves. His first impulse was to root it out, but he didn't. He watched it of evenings, standing at the garden's edge as the light failed. He wouldn't say aloud what he thought it might be becoming, but he watched it every evening, all the same. The morning came when he found the plant standing at the door, waiting for him. He should have been surprised, but he really wasn't. For here was the creature he'd found in the woods, no longer sick and keening, but full of life and youth.
Good morning. It's good to have you back.
It tagged along with him while he did the chores, and he talked to it. A vast improvement over talking to himself. He laid an extra plate for it at breakfast and pulled up an extra chair, but the critter wasn't built for chairs. Nor did it eat. That bothered Mose at first, but he told himself it knew enough to take care of itself. After breakfast, they went out to the garden. Sure enough, the plant was gone. There was a collapsed husk on the ground, the outer covering that had been the cradle of the creature at his side. Then they went to the machine shed, and the creature saw the birdcage. It rushed over and looked it over minutely, then turned to Mose and made a sort of pleading gesture. The creature lay down and showed him how the fastening worked. First, you applied pressure at the exact angle, and the bar moved a little. Then more, again at the exact angle. You did this 3 times and the bar came loose. There was, God knows, no reason why it should. Mose started a fire in the forge, but the creature got between him and the forge and wouldn't let him near. So he took the bar to the anvil and started hammering it back into shape cold, while the creature showed him the shape it should be. It was hard and grueling labor. They worked all day and only straightened out 5 bars. It took 4 solid days to get all the bars hammered into shape. All the time the hay was waiting to be cut, but it was all right with Mose. He had someone to talk to, and the house had lost its loneliness. The creature slipped into the cage and started fooling with the complicated basket on the roof, some sort of control. Then it walked around looking for something it couldn't find. Mose showed it iron and steel, brass and copper and aluminum. It was none of them, and Mose was glad. Ashamed of feeling glad, but glad all the same. Next morning, Mose's hand struck the cigar box and it came crashing down. The creature leaped after the coins. It scooped them up and danced a sort of jig, and Mose knew, with a sinking heart, that it had been silver the critter had been hunting all along.
I can't do it for you. I've done all you can expect of any living being. I found you in the woods and gave you warmth and shelter. I tried to help you, and when I couldn't, I gave you a place to die in. Surely you can't expect me to keep on giving endlessly.
But it was no good. The critter could not hear him, and he did not convince himself. He got up and walked into the living room. He loosened the floorboards and took out the kettle, and the critter, when it saw what was in the kettle, put its arms around itself and hugged in happiness. They lugged the money to the machine shed. Mose built a fire in the forge and started melting down that hard-saved money. There were times he thought he couldn't finish the job, but he did. The creature got the basket out of the cage and dipped out the molten silver with a ladle, shaping it in place with careful hammer taps. It took a long time, for it was exacting work, but finally, it was done. As he lay in bed that night, strange thoughts came creeping in. The terrible, devastating loneliness of the empty wastes between the stars. A driven loneliness while one hunted for something that remained a misty thought one could not define. He knew quite suddenly it was no thought of his, but of this other that was in the room with him.
Goodbye, friend. I'll miss you.
The other held out its hand in farewell. Mose took it, and something round and smooth passed from its palm to his. Then it stepped quickly to the cage and slid between the bars, and the hands reached for the basket, and the birdcage was no longer there. He opened his fingers, and the little crystal ball lay there in his palm, exactly like the one he'd found buried in the garden, except that one had been dead and cloudy, and this one had the living glow of a distant burning fire. Looking at it, he had the strange feeling of a happiness, as if there were many people with him, and all of them were friends. He put the ball in his pocket and stepped spryly for the house to get the milking pails. He pursed up his lips and began to whistle. It had been a long, long time since he had even thought to whistle. It was dark and lonely and unending in the depths of space with no companion. But the old creature had been such a kind savage, so fumbling and so pitiful and eager to help. And one who travels far and fast must likewise travel light. There had been nothing else to give.